Your alumni love helping students and fellow graduates, but they simply don't have time to attend every event, answer every call, or learn yet another online platform. With Protopia, making an impact is easier than it's ever been before. Ever. There's no new app to sign up for or use in our already busy lives. Students, alumni, or even staff can quickly ask for advice or networking via a simple form, email, or text. Protopia's artificial intelligence searches the institution's existing alumni data to find the best experts that are the most likely to assist based on experience, availability, location, and other factors. Each matched alum receives a direct, blind email to ask them to help, giving alumni full control over if and how they want to respond, whether that's by email, call, or a virtual meeting. And if it's not a good time, Protopia's AI simply reaches out to the next alum until the question has been answered. The student receives advice right into her email inbox and is coached to engage the alum to grow her professional network. Finally, our rich dashboard lets staff follow along, view detailed engagement analytics, and access updated alumni data. Protopia. Simple for them, simple for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for listening to Alumless. Today is Friday, September 13th, 2024, and this is the Assembling an Alumni Strategy edition. I'm Ryan Catherwood. I'm joined by Chris Marshall. On the show, we talk about engagement strategies in higher education advancement. We are pre-recorded today. Our travel schedules can sometimes get in the way a little bit of our preference to be live for each and all of our Alumless episodes, but we do love interacting with your comments on the LinkedIn event, so don't hesitate to say hello, get your questions ready for Chris or myself or our special guest, Lauren Simione from the University of Delaware. And of course, if you haven't already, you can catch the bonus edition of Alumless on our podcast edition of the show, 30 minutes additional segment with each and all of our guests. So we're off. Thankful to kick the show off today. So, Chris, how's it going, sir?
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. If listeners can hear some weirdness in my background, we actually have some renovations going on in our house today. Poorly timed for the recording of Alumless.
I can't hear it so far, Ryan. You're good. So
okay, I'm self-conscious about it, because I love the perfect audio quality of our typical Alumless episode. As you know, I'm really hard over about it.
Yep. No worries. You're sounding good.
Awesome. Well, you literally just got off of a flight from Hawaii a short time ago. You were on Maui, but you were not quite on vacation. It was a work trip, as it turns out. You brought your son along, too. He had perhaps a bit more of a vacation than you did. But how are you doing, and how was the trip?
I am upright and taking oxygen, about all I can say. No, I'm actually doing pretty well there. We got in like 2 hours ago, drove back from Newark Airport and jumped right into another Zoom session and then recording this. So, but all good. The trip was great. The client is an independent school out on Maui called Seabury Hall. It's a 5th through 12th grade, 530 student school. And I've done some advancement consulting work with them. And they asked me to come back out for a Friday and Saturday 2-day board of trustee retreat to help them facilitate sort of a board of trustee, what's it like to be a trustee 101 training, some philanthropy, fundraising training. And then we talked about the future state of education, a whole different set of exercises throughout. It was really a great 3-day, but it was a sprint because you fly out, boom, you're there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you get on a plane, you get home Monday morning, and it was just in and out. So, but it was all good, all really good.
Yeah. Well, and I know obviously when we work with clients, we have often a relationship that spans years, even, right? Yeah. Where in this particular case at the school in Maui, you've been connected with some of their leadership team. This was not the first trip that you've made out there. In fact, there was a sequence of other work that you did with them and with some of our clients, not all, right? I think it's fair to say every partnership's a bit different, but there is often a general flow of things, right? Where we were sort of come on and say, okay, how can you help? There's oftentimes sort of a sequencing of events and partnerships. What would you kind of confirm that, or how do you
Yeah.
think about
Yeah.
the different types of partnership engagements we have?
Yeah, I mean, it is not unusual that that relationship starts with an assessment work where they wanted us to come in, look under the hood, and give them an outside expert opinion on what's the state of their alumni program, what are they doing right, where are there opportunities to get better, and what's it going to take to make those improvements. And so the assessment is often the first entry point, but not always. But what we have found, Ryan, you and I know this, is that when you skip that step and you move into any other of the components of work, you lack that foundational knowledge of the program. And so sometimes the school says we want to do strategic planning, and we'll do that. But it's better if we had done the assessment first, because now we know what's working, what's not, before we get into strategic planning. We've done so typically it goes assessment work, strategic plan, and ongoing consulting kind of help, where we help implement whatever the recommendations come out of the work. But in there, as you know, we do survey work, we do field assessments, we do benchmarking, a lot of data around metrics work, volunteer management type work. So all those things that can be component projects that follow from, but always best when there's that assessment at the beginning. That's what I have found to be true anyway. And more we come into a few recently, Ryan, where you and I are like, it would be great if we had a little more understanding of what they're up to before we did X.
I can definitely think of a recent project where, our ability to provide really great in-depth recommendations, was hindered by not having, in the survey context of an alumni survey, would have been better if we had the chance to do an assessment first. And I imagine that's the same, right, with some of the other partnerships we established. But let's bring out Lauren, because I think we're going to talk about her partnership, her work, and she's got a great story to share. So let's bring Lauren out. Hey, Lauren, how's it going?
Great to see you both. Thanks for having me with you.
Yeah, we were just exchanging travel notes before we hit the record button, and Lauren is returning from a trip to Spain, not to be outdone, of course, by Chris returning from a trip from Hawaii this morning. Thanks everybody, a little flexible on our recording schedule for today. So we're grateful for you, Lauren, for joining us. Lauren's the Associate Vice President for Alumni Engagement in the Office of Development and Alumni Relations. Don't call me University Advancement at the University of Delaware. It's always kind of funny how schools either go University Advancement or they actually break it apart and we'll go Alumni and Development. And actually there's some,
or whatever. Right?
There's some really interesting characteristics, I think, of schools that, are work, how they think about the term advancement and so on. But welcome to the show, Lauren. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here. I just celebrated Saturday, September 7th was my 20th work anniversary at UD.
Wow.
So this feels like a neat opportunity. This is the first podcast for me. So thanks for having me.
This is where we're supposed to say, Ryan, well, you started when you were 9, Lauren?
Yes.
That is getting an early jump on your career, but you're doing extraordinary work there. Well, maybe we could start, Lauren, just by sharing a bit about kind of your CMAC partnership origin story. How did you come to get to know Chris? And then we can get a bit more into the work.
Sure. So UD's alumni engagement team went through some pretty significant transitions during the pandemic. We were 16 FTEs in February of 2020. And by September of 21, we were 6. So we were definitely in sort of a state of pretty low morale between those staffing changes and some of the changes in our financial resources, and really looking at that rebuild and what it was going to look like. And my vice president, Jim Dicker, suggested that we bring Chris on to sort of help me lead the team through the challenges and opportunities that I think he knew were pretty likely in the year ahead for us. So initially, my work with Chris really started with, we had 4 lines sort of left over from the departures and the transitions. And so we were looking at the sort of reprioritizing programs and which of those programs really made the most sense to continue to help us be the best integrated advancement model that we could be. And then what were the lines or the roles that made the most sense to help us achieve those those programs and initiatives that we had determined were the ones that we were going to stick with. So that was a big part of the initial conversations that Chris and I had, really thinking about those 4 lines and what roles made the most sense. And then from there, our work moved into a more formal strategic planning process. So Chris and I have been working together for about 3 years, and I will say
Yeah.
it's been a huge gift for me professionally. When your boss says, "Hey, I'm going to bring in somebody to help you," I hope everybody says yes, yes. Like I really tried not to think about it personally, but really looked at it as a gift. And the bonus was that my team really valued Chris's involvements and thoughts as well, and he makes the work a lot of fun too. So it's been great.
Well, two things on that, Laura. One, you came in as a volunteer in the work. I always say there's 2 ways people come to this work. If your VP says, "I want you to do this," they come in as a volunteer, and it happens like you just described. It's fun and it's enjoyable. We all get better. And the other one is when you come in as a prisoner, kicking and screaming. You don't want to do work with a consultant, and then it's not fun. But thank you for being that great volunteer.
The good
The
news
other,
is I've definitely seen that we have more volunteers than
yes,
prisoners,
yeah,
broadly
exactly
speaking,
right.
across our client base.
We,
I'd also like to point out that I'm thinking of a recent client that is still trying to kind of claw their way back post-COVID,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like there's a lot of schools that even in the last few years, last 2 years anyway, right, have even taken a couple steps back for every step forward, and it's been tough to regain a footing. So congratulations on, and it sounds like Chris was a help in that.
For sure.
One of the things that Ryan, your question earlier to me about sequencing and like the logical order of things. So Lauren and I, instead of doing a strategic plan that then led to priorities that led to a staffing structure, we need to move the staff thing quickly before we lose these lines. So we put those first. We did a sort of a mini strategic plan amongst ourselves and said, these are the places we should be hiring, and got those off and launched, and then did the full strategic planning process after, which then, confirmed the work that we had done early on, put it that way. So it was a little bit out of sequence, but we made it work.
Well, let's get into the strategic planning process then a bit, Lauren, if we can talk about
Sure.
some of the components that went into it, thinking about things like the creation of the task force that helped guide the project. And what did you learn from assembling this group of colleagues to work on strategic planning?
Yeah, I mean, in the time that I've been at UD, I would say we've always had some strong partners across campus, but I really felt like the development of the task force was going to be such a key part of the strategic planning process. Buy-in from our strongest partners across UD was going to be critical to really help us move forward to become an even more integrated advancement model. And we know we're not the only ones that are communicating and engaging with our alumni. While we may own the data, we don't own our alumni. And we were, excited about hearing from our campus partners about what they saw as opportunities, and thinking about our partners that touch our students the most. Our students are our future alumni. So the sooner we can integrate that students today, blue hens forever mindset from the students' early days on campus, is just going to help us maintain relationships rather than having to start over to rebuild a relationship down the road with the people that we lose. I mean, we're in a very fortunate place in that the majority of our students graduate with us like a really strong sense of pride and an excitement around their undergraduate student experience. So that can only help us, of course, right? But then it behooves us to ensure that we're engaging with them and connecting them in the ways that are meaningful to both of us, them in particular. So the members of the task force were chosen very strategically. We wanted to make sure that we had representation from the areas around campus that could really help us achieve the goals that we were setting out as part of the strategic plan, but also who could be ambassadors for their teams around the importance of engagement work across the university. Because while some of the senior leaders may have been our best partners, it wasn't necessarily that top-down mindset. And so we were really hopeful that that would be an outcome of the work. So I really feel like creating the university-wide task force and involving them in the process was by far the most beneficial outcome of the work, for sure.
For the folks who are listening to the podcast version, Lauren has a background up on the video version that has the UD logo, University of Delaware logo up, but it has hashtag Blue Hens Forever. Lauren, tell the story. You mentioned it in your comments right there. Students today, Blue Hens Forever, but How many years has it been where that tagline has been used in the signing
Yeah,
of the banner is what I'm thinking of specifically.
signing of the banner, yeah, started with the class of 2014, so it was the fall of 2010. I was sitting around the table with some campus partners, mostly student life folks, and we were talking about new student convocation and ways to make it more exciting and interesting for the students because they're practically falling asleep in it when it was that sort of traditional academic
Right.
experience. And one of our campus partners who ended up being on our task force had mentioned, she's like, oh, I was at a school where they have this class banner, and for about $200, they have it printed and it's got a neat design on it, and the students sign it. And it really helps to represent the formation of that community where we're bringing all together all the students, and you're now all blue hens. And so I call those banners my babies. I'm really protective of them. I only let certain people on my team take them places. Movers never get to touch them. Like I'm really selective about who gets to touch them because we obviously can't recreate it, but they're 4 feet tall by 12 feet wide. They all have Students Day Blue Hens Forever on them. And the students get so excited about signing it. And you think, geez, for like $270, I wish every program was sort of
Yeah.
that
Right.
easy to bring people together and for them to feel excited about it. And then it comes out at events throughout their time on campus. It comes out at graduation. It comes out at reunions. And it's just, again, that sort of representation of I'm part of a community bigger than me, that I'm now the class of, and the one we just signed was the class of 2028. So
So the 2014 class who got there in 10 had their 10th reunion last year. Did you bring the banner out for
of
that?
course we did.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. And
that's
it's
really
neat for
cool.
them to try and find their signature, or if they said, oh, I never saw it, which I want to say to them, what rock were you hiding under for 4 years of your life at UD?
Right.
But they'll take their picture with it. They'll want people to take their picture. So it's neat.
So,
It's certainly it's got to be one of the most important things to do in an effort to build class-based affinity,
yeah,
right? While
yeah,
students are in school. There are other touch points I think that are
Mhm.
important, but very much the feeling, the symbol of the cohort on a
yeah.
flag that you can touch and feel and fly, right? I think
Mhm.
builds those traditions, and I think an important cornerstone of any sort of traditions program should have those types of touch points.
Yeah, and we were talking about strategic planning, which is a broader sort of category of thinking, and you talked about it right there, a specific tactic, right? Or in the early engagement category of how do we get kids to understand they're part of this forever, Blue Hens Forever. You have great tactic right there. But let me ask you, let's go back to the strategic planning piece and ask you, what were the key takeaways and learnings for you, your staff, um, from the process itself, but also what kind of feedback did you get along the way, especially from the partners that we involved in the
Mhm.
process?
Well, I already mentioned that the buy-in from the task force members was really a big takeaway for us, and a real tangible outcome for sure. But another one was really looking at all of the opportunities to share the work being done by the task force with others. And it really presented a huge opportunity for us, especially with our university senior leaders, our president, our first lady, relevant vice presidents, the provost, and the deans. We included them in a focus group around the drafted values, vision, mission, and priorities created by the task force. And that 90-minute conversation with them was really incredibly powerful. My VP and I walked away
I
from
remember
that.
that.
Yeah, from that
Yeah.
meeting just feeling really good about the investment and interest that those leaders showed towards our advancement work. And it was great. They really weren't shy when sharing their thoughts around things to change potentially, or when asking questions of understanding, but it all just added to the buy-in of really critical partners around our engagement work. The feedback has been positive. We had never really done anything like this before. There had been strategic plans that the university had done, but nothing specific to alumni engagement. And when you think about how powerful a group of 200,000 plus people can be to an institution, I think that just helped people sort of understand why we were doing it and what it was we were hoping to get out of it. So it was really positive, and it not just from the say the focus group, but the other people that we had the opportunity to share the work with.
Lauren, not quite in parallel. Perhaps I think you started the strategic planning process first, and then you began the process of partnering up with PEG to conduct an alumni attitude study. And of course, Rob Schoss and the team at PEG are friends of CMAC and good people. And we, always interested in the learning that you can take away from a great alumni survey. Can you talk a little bit about what was some of the factors that went into how you all decided to conduct an alumni survey, and what were some of the things that you learned by doing it?
Sure. We had done 2 other alumni attitude surveys with PEG, but it had been quite some time since we'd done the last one. So there was the timing of it's been a while since we've asked our alums for their opinions and thoughts around things related to their relationship with their alma mater. But knowing that we were going through a strategic planning process, we felt like an important piece of that was having the alums have a voice in the process. And so, one of the big takeaways from the first 2 surveys that we had done was a strong interest in more career and professional development initiatives from our alumni were wanting that from us. And so, we were definitely curious to see if that would rise as an interest from our alums. And if not, then sort of what would rise to the top on the list of things that our alumni wanted and needed from their alma mater. So the career and professional development angle definitely still sort of rose to the top. Our alumni wanted to help our students and alumni secure jobs. They're very interested in lifelong learning opportunities, which wasn't something that really rose to the top the last time. So that was an interesting takeaway. And they told us that they give back to make a difference for others. Our youngest alums wanted more communication around benefits and resources, more invitation to events, and they also wanted activities in continuing education, but with that lens of helping students and alumni securing jobs. And we always would want our response rate to be higher than it is, but we also know there's value in just simply asking our alumni to share their thoughts with us, even if they choose not to do so. But the other piece of it that we've learned is, so we put it out there, give us your opinion, tell us what you think, but we know it's important, if not just, or if more important, to be sure to tell them that we heard what they said, and we need to act on the areas of opportunity presented through the results. So our magazine editor has been a really great partner with us through the strategic planning process, and so there was a great 2-page spread around the results of the alumni survey in the magazine, and then it sort of teased that there'd be more about the official sort of strategic planning white paper coming in the next issue. So it was interesting to see, because then it also linked to a website for some additional survey results. So it was interesting to see some of the traffic that both the magazine and the website got.
One of the things you
Yeah,
guys did really well, I tell other clients about you all the time, Lauren, that you let people know, not just the survey respondents, but the whole community, that we took this, we did this step, took the step and did this work, and here's what we learned, here's what we're going to do with it, and we're going to keep reporting back on it, and did it very transparently. I loved it. It was well done.
Thank
Kudos.
you.
like thinking back on both the survey and the strategic planning process, were there any of the findings or any of the sort of aha moments that you may have discovered along the way in putting it all together that really stand out from those 2 different projects?
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I definitely was pleasantly surprised by the level of buy-in from the senior leadership at UD. So, in addition to sharing the strategic planning work with them and really hearing their thoughts and comments around the values, vision, mission, and priorities, we took the survey results to them. So sort of after seeing their interest in the task force outcomes, we chose to pay to have our survey results sorted by college, and we shared that with the deans in another in-person meeting, and they just ate it up. They just
No, they
ate it
loved
up.
it. They
They were
loved
so
it.
curious and interested. They had lots of friendly competition among one another, taking pictures if there was a slide that showed
Right.
their college a little higher than everybody else. They were like, can we get the raw data? We really want to dig into it. They asked great questions. And to me, it just showed their willingness to partner with us and to learn about our work in a way that I hadn't necessarily seen before. And so, it was work to bring together that amount of senior leadership at the university. But when we did the strategic planning conversation with them, I think we had all but 2 people that we invited with us. It was like 18 people in the conference room in our senior administration building. And again, like I said, my VP was kind of giddy from it. And then to see their interest in the survey results related to their constituents, which I think that was an important piece of it, right? We shared it in a relevant way for them. We did share some of the overall survey data as the whole cohort of responses, but for the most part, we dug into the college specific data. And I think they really appreciated that we were thinking about them and their constituents when we shared it with them. So that was definitely one of our biggest surprises, but in a really positive way.
the visual you painting of the academic deans having fun, in that moment of learning the results and some friendly competition, man, that does not happen everywhere.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
it's really great. It shows a lot about the group of leaders you have at the university to really sort of.
The VP, Ryan, had said the sentence close to what you just said. I have not been anywhere where we had this kind of conversation with deans before.
It was great.
That's great. So Chris, I mean, obviously you've been in partners with Lauren and the team there for a while, and you were along for the ride, of course, leading the strategic planning and then assisting with some of the survey components. And now, of course, you're sort of forging ahead and have tackled things like engagement metrics, which I'll ask Lauren about as well. But just maybe you can share some of your reflections from the project, some of the unique challenges you noticed, opportunities that they have there at University of Delaware.
Yeah, as like a lot of flagship state, large public, complex institutions, they have all the things that go with that right there. When you're in that model, it's hard to do this work. And what was really interesting for me, I kind of knew this going in. I've had experience with the university for a while now, and for a period of time, they were in the same athletic conference that I competed in when I was younger. So I knew the passion people had for that place, but it was reinforced again and again and again throughout this, from not just talking to alums, your alumni board, by the way, holy cow, unbelievable passion, but your deans, I mean, they thought of themselves as blue hands, and not very few of them, if any, had Delaware academic connections, but they were there. And the other observations, Lauren, you're part of a very sophisticated shop led by a real one of the top VPs, and I think you're one of the top AVPs out there, Lauren, as well. But one of the opportunity areas still, Lauren, you talked about where you were before, and then in the pandemic, and where you are now. You're still not back to where you were. And like a lot of other public institutions, Ryan, we're dealing with resource constraints where we don't have the right amount of staff, frankly, to get all the work done. So we got to be really focused. We don't have the budget dollars we need to get some of the work done. And Lauren's been feeling that pain for a little bit, and still feels it, I know, most recently. So that's a challenge or opportunity area, I think, that we need to get addressed. But so many good things I can put on the list, but still, any shop we've looked under the hood at, Ryan, as you know, there's always going to be some challenges to work through. But the good news here is that we have the great people involved in it. And Lauren's team, by the way, is fantastic. I've got to know them very well, and superstars all across.
At a large flagship state university we've all heard of tell me that they hope to get the staff size up to between 8 and 10 over the next couple of years. And yeah, and so I mean, every shop has a different sort of approach, but I'm glad that things are moving in the right direction, Lauren. And it sounds like the metrics component really showcasing and beginning to piece together a picture of return on investment, and matching that excitement with the deans around survey results. I imagine would also be a lot of interest in the results of how their stakeholders are engaging with the university. We'll tackle maybe some more about the metrics question in our bonus section, but maybe you can sort of just walk us through the first bit about how the strategic planning process and the survey efforts kind of led to sort of the next step in terms of the building a metrics framework.
Yeah, and that buy-in around the work from our senior leaders and my VP and others across STAR and the university, I think, really helped my case when I was pushing for UD to submit to case around alumni engagement metrics. So we did end up submitting for the first time with our fiscal year 23 numbers. It definitely, for me, was a logical next step to be able to use that framework around the data to help drive sort of specific strategies that were fitting up and connecting to the values, vision, mission, and priorities that were developed as part of the strategic planning process. UD also tends to be really interested in our comparator institutions and what other people are doing and how we rank and compare to them. And so the fact that we can get some comparative data from CASE around the engagement metrics helps as well. When I submitted our results from fiscal year 23, I think one of the first questions that came back was, how does that compare to the other large publics?
Almost all Always, right,
right?
exactly.
So,
Yeah,
so it was
yeah.
great to be able to say that for that year we were higher. It was a great first step for us. And since we submitted those fiscal year 23 numbers, then it's thinking about, so what are we doing with that data, and how can it help shape some of the strategies and programs that we continue to do move forward, or that we don't continue to do moving forward because they're really not yielding the right return on investment for us. So it was positive.
Awesome. Well, we have reached the end of our live Alumless section, and so glad everyone could join us on this Friday. For those of you who are going to be hopping over and listening to the second half on the podcast, or maybe you're already there and are about to hear a brief ad break for our friends at Protopia, and we'll be back with Lauren Simione from the University of Delaware on the other side. But Chris, before we do, who is our guest in 2 weeks?
Another cool conversation with another large public institution down in Florida, in Orlando, UCF, University of Central Florida. So, Lauren, your counterpart there is Heather Junod.
She's great. They make us look little, honestly. And
Exactly
the crazy thing is,
They make everybody look little.
we trace our roots back to 1743. What are they, like 30, 40 years old at this point? And they're
a little
huge.
older, but
yeah,
yeah, half your age at best.
Yeah,
and they have
sure.
360,000 alumni. It's unbelievable. But Heather Junod has an interesting role where she oversees, like a lot of your counterparts, Lauren, annual alumni engagement, but also annual giving team. So fun conversation coming there, large public and a combined shop, and another great leader on the team there. So we'll have her on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, excited about that. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll be back with Lauren Simione in just a moment. See you soon. All right.
Lauren.